Have you ever been frantically looking for your keys or your phone, just panicking, only to realize they were in your pocket the entire time? Well, we're going to dive into a simple story, one famously told by the sage Ramana Maharshi, that takes that exact feeling and uses it to explain a massive truth about who we are. So let's start with a riddle that kind of messes with your head. How can you find something that was never actually lost to begin with? It sounds like a trick question, right? But the answer is the whole point of the story we're about to get into. So just let that question hang in the air for a bit. All right, so our story kicks off simply enough. We've got a group of friends, and they're setting out on a journey together. There are 10 of them. Now, it's kind of funny. The original story calls them 10 fools, and you'll see why in a second. So they get to a river, and they all work together and manage to cross it. Everyone makes it to the other side safely. So far, so good. But once they're all on the other side, one of them, the responsible one, decides to do a head count. He points to each of his friends, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. He counts again. Still 9. He starts to panic and yells, "Wait a minute! There's only 9 of us! We've lost someone!" So what's the big mistake here? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. He's so focused on making sure everyone else is okay that he just completely forgets to count himself. And this is where a tiny mistake just snowballs into a full-blown crisis. A second friend, probably thinking the first guy can't count, steps up. He counts, he gets 9. A third friend tries. Same thing, 9. One after another, every single one of them makes the exact same mistake. They each forget to count themselves. And every time they do it, that horrible feeling of dread just gets worse and worse. Okay, and this right here, this is the key. Because it's not just about a silly math mistake anymore. This repeated error leads them to an incredibly powerful and emotional, but totally wrong conclusion. You know how it is. Their minds just race to the absolute worst-case scenario. Where could the 10th man be? He must have fallen in the river. They decide with total certainty that one of their dear friends has drowned. And you gotta understand, for them, this belief is 100% real. It's not some abstract idea. It's a punch to the gut. They are completely overcome with real, genuine grief. They just collapse right there on the riverbank, weeping for the friend they're so sure they've lost. All right, let's get to the turning point in the story. As these 10 men are crying their eyes out, their little spectacle catches the eye of someone passing by. So imagine this. A stranger is just walking along and stumbles upon this truly bizarre scene. There are 10 guys, all right there, but they're wailing because they think one of them is missing. I mean, you'd be confused too, right? So he stops and asks, what on earth is going on? Now, what the stranger does next is it's brilliant. He knows that just telling them they're wrong isn't going to cut it. They need to experience the truth for themselves. So he comes up with this wild plan. He says, listen, I'm going to give each of you a good whack. When I hit you, you shout out your number. It's a weird plan, for sure, but he promises it'll help them find their lost friend. At this point, they're so desperate they'll try just about anything. So the 10 men line up, and the stranger gets ready to start his very hands-on lesson. The stranger walks up to the first guy, whack, and the guy yells 1. Then the second guy gets a whack and shouts 2. This goes on down the line, and with each blow, it forces each man to actually feel his own presence and count himself as part of the group. And here we go, the big moment. The stranger gets to the very last man in line. Maybe it was even the guy who started all the panic in the first place. He gives him a solid whack, and that man, finally forced to include himself in the count, shouts out, 10! And boom, just like that, in a single moment, the whole illusion just shatters. They all look around at each other, and it clicks. They all realize what a foolish mistake they've made. And just as quickly as it came, their grief is just gone. So you've probably guessed, this story isn't actually about a bunch of guys who are bad at counting. No, it's a parable. It's a metaphor that's pointing to a much, much deeper truth about all of us. This quote right here is the absolute core of the lesson. Think about it, right? The friends didn't need to go out and find a 10th person. He wasn't missing. What they needed to do was lose something: their ignorance. They had to get rid of the mistaken idea that was blinding them from the truth that was right there the whole time. I mean, really think about their suffering. Where did it come from? It wasn't caused by a real event. Nobody actually drowned. It was caused entirely by a mistaken thought in their own heads,
by their ignorance. The second that ignorance was gone, the suffering vanished. The whole problem was internal.
And this is exactly what's meant by realization. The 10th man was never lost, so he couldn't be found. He was always there, just overlooked. And in the same way, this philosophy is saying that true self-knowledge isn't about gaining some new thing from the outside. It's about removing the layers of ignorance that are hiding the truth of who you already are. And that brings us right back to that riddle from the beginning. And it leaves us with one last, pretty big question. In our own search for happiness, or for meaning, what's the 10th man we're overlooking? What fundamental truth about ourselves are we just not counting?